In the pantheon of Australian touring car legends, some names roll off the tongue effortlessly. Peter Brock, Allan Moffat, Dick Johnson. But hidden beneath the high beams of these household names is a man whose sheer grit, racecraft, and determination earned him a place among the greats. He wasn't always in the flashiest car, he wasn't always backed by the biggest sponsor, but when the lights went out, Bob Morris drove with the fury of a champion, and in 1979, he proved it. This is the story of Bob Morris, Bathurst winner, national champion, and the quiet achiever of Australian motorsport. Robert Morris was born in 1948, raised in the working class Sydney suburb of Granville. His father, Ray Morris, was a competitor himself, racing in the early days of the Australian touring car scene. Ray ran the family's car dealership, but his true passion lay on the track, and that love of motorsport trickled down to Bob early on. As a teenager, Morris began racing minis and later progressed into more powerful touring cars. Like many young drivers of his era, Morris had to earn his stripes the hard way, elbow grease in the garage, long nights on the spanners, and days behind the wheel racing for respect. Morris made his Bathurst debut in 1968 at age 20, driving a Toyota Corolla. It was the start of a long association with the mountain. Though the early years yielded no trophies, they offered something more valuable: experience. In the early 70s he found increasing success with the Holden dealer team, but after a falling out and subsequent departure, Morris set out to forge his own path, away from the shadow of the factory teams. In an era dominated by Peter Brock's flair and Allan Moffat's swagger, Morris was the quiet assassin, consistent, technical, and deeply focused. In 1973, Bob Morris scored a breakthrough win in the Toby Lee Series at Oran Park, defeating the factory-backed giants. That year he would begin his racing association with Ron Hodgson Racing, a Sydney-based privateer outfit, with the support of Channel 7 later on. It was the beginning of a partnership that would change Australian touring car racing. From 1974 to 1976, Morris rose from dark horse to title contender, finishing runner-up in the 1974 Touring Car Championship to the dealer team's Peter Brock. Behind the wheel of the number 7 Holden Tirana, he was fast becoming a fan favourite. And in 1976, he won his first Bathurst 1000. But there was a catch. Driving alongside British ace John Fitzpatrick in a Ron Hodgson Racing Tirana L34, Morris was officially credited with the win after coaxing the ailing L34 across the finish line. But controversy ensued when some in the paddock argued that the dealer team Tirana of Colin Bond and John Harvey were the real winners. Yet the win stood, and Morris was now a Bathurst champion. Morris was now a consistent threat to the likes of Brock, Moffat and Bond. However, he lacked the promotional polish. He made up for it in unrelenting pace. Dick Johnson once said in a 1993 interview, "Bob was a gentleman racer, but don't let that fool you. He could dice with the best of us, and he usually came out ahead." Morris's battles with Brock, particularly in the mid to late 70s, were a highlight of the Touring Car Championship. His driving was aggressive, yet controlled, technical, yet instinctive. In 1979, Morris was at his zenith. After narrowly losing the 78 championship to Brock by a mere 2 points, Morris, driving for the Ron Hodgson Racing Tirana A9X, had finally found the consistency needed to win a national championship. He claimed the 79 Touring Car Championship title, edging out Brock and Alan Grice in a tense, hard-fought season dominated by A9X Tiranas. That year, Morris also claimed victory in the AMSCAR series and was a serious threat at the endurance events. However, in 1979, it also marked the beginning of the end. Despite his triumphs in that season, Morris's career trajectory shifted sharply in the early 80s. Ron Hodgson, whose financial and logistical support had underpinned Morris's rise, pulled out of motorsport at the end of 1979. Without his backer, Morris struggled to find consistent results. His new venture with the Craven Mild Racing, a joint effort with Alan Grice, ended in disaster. The team was plagued by mechanical issues, inconsistent funding, and clashing personalities. Morris and Grice split after just 1 year. Morris would soldier on into the 80s, but the magic of the 70s was hard to recapture. He raced on, sometimes in underpowered machinery, always with a sense of unfinished business. By 1984, Morris was part of the Roadways racing team, partnering with emerging talents like Tony Longhurst. But his form had dipped. The final major chapter came in 1984 at Bathurst, where a mechanical failure forced an early retirement. it would be his last Bathurst as a serious contender. Morris quietly stepped away from professional motorsport in 1985, at just aged 37 years old. Bob Morris is often left out of mainstream motorsport retrospectives, but his legacy remains etched into the history books. Bathurst winner, touring car champion, multiple AMSCAR Series wins, and dozens of podiums as a privateer. In 2004 he was inducted into the V8 Supercars Hall of Fame, a recognition many felt was long overdue. What set Bob Morris apart wasn't just his results, it was his attitude. He never played politics, he never chased the spotlight, and in an era of larger-than-life egos and media spats, Morris kept his helmet on, did the job, and let his results speak for themselves. His meticulous driving style and mechanical sympathy made him invaluable in endurance events. He was known for looking after the car, pushing it to the edge, but rarely over. In the words of famous motoring journalist Bill Tuckey, Bob was the sort of driver you'd want beside you in a 1,000 kilometre race, smart, fast, and utterly dependable. Morris rarely gave interviews, but in one rare sit-down he reflected on his career with typical humility. I didn't have the big budgets, or the big name, but I had the drive. I raced hard, I raced fair, and I had a hell of a lot of fun doing it. That spirit, that honesty, unfiltered love for racing, is why Bob Morris remains one of the true unsung heroes of Australian motorsport. Bob Morris never asked for the limelight, but here at the Racing Chronicles, we believe his story deserves to be told. He may not have racked up the most wins, he may not have been the loudest voice in the paddock, but when it came to pure racing ability, he was right there with the best of them. Kevin Bartlett once said, "Bob was one of the most underrated drivers I ever raced. Quiet in the pits, loud on the track." So here's to Bob Morris, a true champion, a Bathurst legend, and a racer who always let his driving do the talking. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you never miss an episode of the Racing Chronicles. We've got plenty more stories coming your way, so stay tuned for the next chapter in racing history. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.